Happy Thursday, Central Georgia. Pat yourself on the back. You are one day closer to Friday. So we're going to continue to break down the beautiful stretch of weather that we have in store for today all the way into your weekend, and a better look at our next chance at rain, which we're seeing coming into clearer picture now, a little bit better agreement amongst the models. However, it's not looking at just a one-day rain affair. It is looking like it's going to be a pretty dreary week as we go into next week. So we'll break down all those details. And one big change that we do at least have for the forecast regarding today. So let's go into your headlines. Warming up into the weekend, obviously that's what we've been referring to after the last 2 days have been a little bit cooler into the mid-70s. Going to be dry for Easter plans. That's what we've been saying over the course of the last week as well, which is going to cooperate very, very well for any plans that you have with friends and family this weekend. Then scattered rain will be starting on Monday. How long does it last is going to be the big question as we head to the tail end of your 7-day forecast. We had some clouds present earlier in the morning. Those have since kind of dissipated and fallen apart. Right now, clear blue skies over Warner Robins. Maybe a few of those clouds still off in the distance, kind of creating a bit of a haze and a little bit of that white color in the sky. Current temperatures now into the lower half of the 60s. Some areas actually well on their way to 70, already at 70 degrees at this hour before midday in Vidalia. 63 in Wrightsville, 65 in Gordon, taking it over to a 63 also here in Macon. A little bit cooler down in Warner Robins at 61 degrees. I think it's the coolest of the bunch on the temperature map. So low to mid to upper 60s, and then that one lone 70 in Vidalia. It has definitely warmed up a good amount in about 3 hours or so since we hit our morning lows, somewhere in the mid 40s, some areas even down into the lower 40s. Current temperatures all across the United States, looking at even mid to upper 60s over to the west in the Great Plains area where we've typically seen some colder weather present. 68 over in Wichita, Kansas, 67 in Oklahoma City. Already 74 degrees in Houston. It is mighty, mighty warm, but not quite as warm as Orlando. 75 degrees and sunny down in Florida. The cooler air is going to be present up the Appalachian Mountains as you take it into states like North Carolina, West Virginia, eventually Pennsylvania, where you still see plenty of that blue color that is going to be present. Actually, I believe some chances of some snow up in the New England area and upstate New York as we go into this weekend. Thankfully, we are not talking about any of that for our forecast. So hour by hour, continuing to climb the ladder. 70s, we should hit them already by the noon hour, at least here in Macon. Obviously, you saw Vidalia is 1 degree shy of that 71 degree mark. And then we continue the climb into the upper 70s, looking like we're going to top out around 79 degrees. However, my high temperature is going to defer from this just a little bit. But before we get into your high temperature for today, dew points still rather dry, an increase from yesterday up into the 40s, maybe even 50 degrees here in Macon. However, not seeing any of the light green shades, so it is still a dry atmosphere. And with warmer temperatures ensuing, we can definitely expect some fluctuation with those dew points, maybe increasing a little bit, then decreasing. We don't want too much of it present. Dew points in the 60s with these warmer temperatures will have an influence on what it feels like outside. So while we may not necessarily hit 90 over the course of this weekend, I do believe maybe it might feel like 90 at some points throughout some days because we do have some moisture present. Here's a look at your winds and your wind gusts, something we've been talking about for the last 3 days in central Georgia. Well, now finally seeing them calm down, getting any shades of color out of here in our southern half, but we still have some shades of blue up here indicating maybe a steady breeze, 5 miles per hour, 7 miles per hour as you take it over to Upson County, and not going to be as present as it was yesterday, but maybe feeling a little bit of a wind at times to try to keep you a little bit cooler. Here's a look at your satellite and radar picture in the state of Georgia. You can briefly see that cloud cover I was referring to early this morning. Other than that, is all quiet in the Peach State as we head into the end of your work week. And that is because high pressure is continuing to dominate our forecast. These blue H circles that we see on the surface map, when I refer to that high pressure, it just means that it's going to be a lot calmer weather, a lot of drier air than is normally present. Your severe weather and your active weather is typically associated more so with low pressure, and that's what's actually present up to the northwest of us, where the stationary boundary is actually attached to. You're not seeing it in the picture, and you do see a cluster of showers, even some thunderstorms that look like last night over in eastern Kansas. Now that cluster is trekking eastward through states like Missouri into southern southern Illinois, excuse me, and then maybe a few sprinkles starting to pop up a little bit in states like Louisiana and Mississippi. But not seeing any signs of any major weather systems approaching here. We actually won't see one until we get into the beginning of next week. So let's talk about the numbers with a calm weather period continuing. 39 degrees was our low yesterday here in Macon. Didn't make it to that mark this morning, very thankfully, and only climbed to 74 degrees for a high temperature. Hit 75 the day before that and 84 on Monday to kick off the week. So it has been a relatively cool down, if you will, but we still fell below average, and that has been the big story, not flirting with any records. And with another day without rain, we are continuing to climb in the negative direction, that is, of our year departure of rain, where we should be at this time of year in terms of rainfall. So hovering nearly at an inch below average. Still not forecasting any rain today, tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday. This number is expected to climb somewhere to probably about the 1.5 inch mark before our next rain chance does arrive. However, with our next rain chance, it may last more than just one day, like I alluded to. So we might get some relief in terms of that year departure. For today's, for today's almanac, 78 degrees and 51 for the morning low. We hovered pretty close to 50 degrees in some areas, but everyone did fall below that morning low. 78 for a high. I believe we're going to exceed that, not necessarily exceed it like 92 did back in 1955. Thankfully, no lower 30s in the forecast as we started out this morning. And then there's your sunrise and sunset times. Move the computer just out of the way right there. 7:02 for a sunrise, creeping closer and closer to that pre-7 a.m. sunrise, and then sunset continuing to get a little bit later each day at 8:06 as we go into tonight. So your forecasted high for today, remember that meteogram, said we're going to top out at around 79 degrees. I think we're going to exceed that because now we're seeing a warming trend. And once you get into a little bit of a warming trend, some of the models aren't necessarily the most accurate. I like to go over it maybe a degree or two every time we do start that warming trend. So I think we're going to hit around 81 degrees for today, 3 degrees above average. But even if we hit 79 degrees, still going to be above the average high of 78 that we were just talking about. So beginning to warm up, hitting the 80s a little bit earlier than we expected. These models were saying maybe upper 70s the past couple of days, but after what I've seen throughout today, I am forecasting above the 80s. So if you wanted the 80s back, it's all good news for you today, but it is obviously going to continue to get even higher than that on the high temperature side. Back above average, the main story today. So obviously, just really talking numbers, the mostly sunny skies will continue once again. So I did allude to that sunrise going to be before 7 a.m. When specifically can you expect that sunrise before 7 a.m.? That would be Saturday morning on April 19th. The sun will rise at 6:59 a.m. And this is going to have implications because many of you probably set your alarm for about 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's obviously seeing a little bit of light in the sky, but the earlier and earlier that this sunrise does get, that's where you're going to have to deal with things like the sun peeking through any of your blinds, any of your curtains. Definitely go invest in some blackout curtains if you're waiting for a good time for that, because it's only going to get earlier and give you a little bit of an early wake-up call before your alarm goes off, and no one is a big fan of that. If you're looking for something to do in this beautiful weather, family coming into town a little bit early, looking for something nice to do on your Thursday night, maybe you have a PTO day for tomorrow afternoon, Mercer Baseball is actually back in town. All college baseball teams will be squaring off starting today for their 3-game series because Sunday is Easter, so they're doing their series Thursday all the way to Saturday. They will be facing Eastern Tennessee State at Ortho Georgia Park here in Macon. First pitch will get going at 6 p.m. As you go throughout the night, temperatures obviously are going to continue to cool down, but starting out near 80 degrees, around 79 degrees for your first pitch. And sunset going to be around 8:02, so once you're getting into the late innings of the ball game. Heading home, not going to be too cool, but I imagine the game will probably wrap up before the 10 p.m. hour, but maybe if you're kind of staying late and trying to get everything together, all the chairs, all the kids, and pack them up in the car, that's the temperatures you can expect. Maybe as you're unpacking the car when you finally do get home. Temperatures in the lower 60s, not too cool, but still a little bit cooler than the lower 80s and the upper 70s. So let's talk about future view. Do we have anything worth talking about as opposed to the last couple of days? The short answer is no. Just on and off cloud cover throughout today. into the end of your work week on Friday. Maybe a few high clouds here and there, maybe a few lower level clouds, those poofy cumulus clouds. Still not seeing anything that's going to be rain producing necessarily. And we have those moments of clearing, those moments of clear blue sky. And as we go throughout Saturday, one change that we have seen, and Ben was mentioning it last night during this show, that we did see more cloud cover on the longer range models, and they're not as high resolution as the short range model that you see. So now that we actually can play throughout the entire duration of Saturday, it's looking like mostly sunny skies. You may not see much cloud cover whatsoever. So going to continue to contribute to that warm up. And then future view goes as far as 3 a.m. on Sunday, where we do see more cloud cover finally approaching over from the west. But as we trek into your Easter Sunday, still not looking like anything's going to be rain producing. How about the winds? Are they going to remain calm all day? Well, the short answer, once again, is going to be yes. Maybe a steady breeze, 5 miles per hour, up to 10 miles per hour, more so a gust. But we will see that steady breeze that we had present yesterday build back in for tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow, while on the warmer side, as opposed to today and any other day, really the rest of the work week, it will be nice and breezy. And those winds are just going to fluctuate throughout the course of this weekend. Maybe still going to see a steady breeze on Saturday. If we do see a steady breeze, it's going to be very, very nice because the temperatures are going to be warmer as we go day by day on that map. We'll talk about future views humidity right now, and it's the same story as the winds. I'll just continue to kind of fluctuate it a little bit, play it all the way through. But we do see humidity build back into the forecast, that light green color, still indicating that we have some areas of dew points in the 50s. Once we get into the upper end of the 60s, that's when we really have to worry about the moisture affecting what it does feel like outside, making it feel a couple degrees warmer than what the temperature actually is. So didn't get to update this, but we do have another fire danger statement issued today. That is mainly going to be in east central Georgia. So specific counties, you can go on the National Weather Service website to look for that, and I'll try to make a post about it on social media later. Like I said, just been a busy morning, didn't have time to update this graphic for you. And it still is in light of relative humidity levels still going to be very low and having dry vegetation from the lack of rain recently. The winds aren't going to be as much of a factor today, but hopefully as we have some humidity build back into the forecast, we were just talking about how we didn't want to for the temperature's sake, it will be good for these fire danger statements and kind of alleviate any of those sketchy conditions that you can have in terms of outdoor burning and such if you're trying to clean up before family comes into town. So afternoon highs, 81 for today, 86 for tomorrow, and then 88, 87, and 87 as we head into Saturday through Monday. Going to be nice and warm, and I have alluded to that rain chance on Monday. I'll tell you about why we're still going to be just as warm on Monday in just a little bit when we get to those long-range models. I believe it's coming up here shortly. Morning lows going to climb the ladder each day. Still a little bit chilly tomorrow morning, feeling a little bit better on Saturday morning, and then eventually it's feeling really good as you kick off Easter Sunday morning and your Monday morning, near 60 degrees and getting to around 10 degrees above average for the average morning low that we do see, 51 degrees up there in the top right corner. So I made a Facebook video yesterday while I was taking Aspen on a walk, but it's always a good reminder to bring this graphic back. Reminder when it is too hot to trot, especially those concrete and asphalt temperatures. Obviously, if you're playing in the grass and such, it can get really warm when temperatures are up to 95 degrees. But the concrete and the asphalt are the main concerns. And with temperatures tomorrow going to exceed 85 degrees, a reminder that that concrete and asphalt can be above 100 degrees, even close to 130 degrees on the asphalt, a surface that does absorb that radiation a little bit better due to its darker color and nature as opposed to the concrete, which reflects more of the radiation, but still can get pretty warm. If we start to flirt with the 90s over this weekend, there's a look at your concrete and asphalt temperatures, 125 and 140. Get your pets some form of insulation if you are planning on taking them on a walk across the neighborhood, but try to keep them in the grass, try to keep them in shaded areas, don't keep them out too long. Again, if it's a little bit too hot for your liking, it's definitely a little bit too hot for your pet's liking. Thankfully, we're not dealing with this top category as of yet, and hopefully we're not dealing with this category until we get into the month of May. Like I said yesterday, going to keep our fingers crossed about those 90-degree days. So we'll go over to your long-range future view, kind of flash forwarded through Easter. Wasn't able to put a pause point on it. We have some cool icons, changed the colors for it. But Easter is still going to be dry, maybe partly cloudy to mostly cloudy. Still going to be a warm day as the winds are going to continue to usher in moisture and warmer air from areas where it is a little bit warmer down south. We do see a front moving through, just like we have the last couple of days. Better agreement today that this is going to be in the second half of Monday if we do see it whatsoever. And it may be as late as Monday evening into Monday night, past that warmest portion of the day. But as it's passing through, I think the consensus is more overnight into early morning on Tuesday before seeing any of that rain whatsoever. And when it's moving through during a cooler portion of the evening, that's why you start to see some disorganization with this line of rain. We go into Tuesday, and this front's going to do a very funny thing. Just kind of stall and just kind of hang out over the course of Tuesday, Wednesday, and on into Thursday as far as our long-range models do go. But then we look at another front to the north to kind of push that front that is stalled a little bit farther down to the south. So hopefully we can clear conditions out as we get into next weekend, the last weekend of April. But it does look like a stretch of maybe 3 or 4 days where we can see our fair share of scattered rain. Can't rule out an isolated thunderstorm or two, not looking like of the severe criteria, a lower end thunderstorm, but maybe a pocket of heavier rain. And if you do catch one of those, consider yourself lucky, because some areas, due to the scattered nature of this rain, may not luck out with any rain whatsoever, and you're still going to have to go out and water your plants and water your grass each and every day. So we hopefully can get some hydration for all of your lawns, all of your plants, all of your gardens, everything that does need rain, with going on about 2 weeks now with the lack of rain. Actually, I guess about a week. We had some thunderstorms that were present as of last Thursday evening. It looks like we have a fair share, or at least a way better shot than what we had this week, of seeing some rain, as systems are going to be all around us, and not necessarily the forcing for severe weather that we have seen in terms of instability levels, in terms of lifting, in terms of updraft. All those things that we study when we're talking about severe weather don't really have the conditions too suitable for them, that potential energy. So hopefully that's going to be a good thing. So Grillcast, going to be a great night once again to fire up the grill. Green spatulas on the board. Going to continue to show you this with green spatulas for your Friday, for your Saturday, and for your Sunday. No need to order in whatsoever. Your allergy monitor remains the same as it did yesterday. Very high grass pollen levels, tree pollen down a little bit to moderate levels at least. Ragweed is still almost non-existent, and then low levels of mold. And don't pay attention to that date. That is for Thursday. Forgot to change the header, but did edit the actual graphic. So here's your 7-day forecast as you head into a very fun weekend, hopefully, that you do have with friends and family. It will be steadily climbing the ladder. 81 today, 86 tomorrow, 88 for your Saturday and Sunday. Still a bit chilly to start out Friday morning, but I think feeling a lot more pleasant in the lower 50s for your Saturday morning. No chance of rain throughout the course of this entire weekend. And I know Easter Sunday does say 87 degrees, but keep in mind, we hit that highest temperature sometime around 3, 4 to 5 p.m. each and every day. So your temperatures for morning church services are going to be a lot better, somewhere in the 60s, in the 70s. Once you're trekking past the noon hour, probably going to get into the lower 80s and start to flirt with maybe some mid 80s. That's when it's going to start to feel warm. So my advice, probably, if you don't want to feel that warm air, you want to dress nice for church, you want to wear your sports coat like I am, go a little bit earlier. Go to that earlier service. It will be worth your while, especially walking in and out. And hopefully your church does have air conditioning for any later services on Easter Sunday. Then we transition into the work week next week. 30% chance of showers on Monday. From the agreement that I'm continuing to see, I would probably say, number one, I would put an evening mark on this. But number two, I'm not even sure if I would put 30% on it. We really fine-tune the percentages of rain once we see them on the short-range models. Still not able to get those into view until we get, I believe, into Saturday morning at least, with this being a late night Monday kind of chance of rain. So that's where things do stand right now. Maybe overnight into Tuesday is your best chance at seeing some rain, and still very scattered in nature. I'm not too impressed with what I'm seeing coverage-wise according to the long-range models. Temperatures are still going to be warm because we'll have partly cloudy skies in some areas that will allow for that warm-up each and every day. And that's why I still have 87 on the board for Monday, because if this rain doesn't come in until the late evening hours, we're still going to warm up accordingly, just like we will for your Easter Sunday. And this rain could very well extend past your 7-day into Thursday next week. and that's when we look at two features to finally interact with each other, one to kick that stalled boundary out of here, and then eventually hopefully clear us out as we head into the next weekend. But why not look at the probabilities of what we have in store starting at the end of next week, going into the second to last day of April. Can't remember if April is 31 or 30 days during the month. It might be 30, but still April 24th through April 30th, above normal. So we do see that red shade once again. We're falling in the same category as when I showed this graphic yesterday. We're looking at a pretty good probability of seeing those above average and those above normal temperatures, looking like the 80s are going to be here to stay even past your 7-day forecast. In the precipitation outlook, we still are falling under the same shaded area, which is one category over from the near normal probability. So a slight probability of seeing above normal rainfall. However, I have seen a shift in these darker green colors over to our west. So hopefully they will continue to creep into central Georgia as we get past your extended forecast, start heading into the very beginning of May. But that's where things do stand as of right now. I'm really not expecting widespread rain by any means. It's more looking like scattered rain, a couple of isolated thunderstorms, but we'll get a better idea of that once the short range models show it. And again, it's nothing to worry about until you get into next week. We will cross that bridge when we get there, continue to enjoy an unseasonably warm Easter, nearly 10 degrees above average. Make sure you're properly hydrating, applying that sunscreen if you're outside for an extended amount of time. But be sure to be safe and have fun with your friends and family for the holiday this weekend. And yeah, I guess that kind of about covers it. I was thinking I had one more thing to say right there, but dry all the way through your Sunday. We'll talk about those rain chances once we get a little bit closer into the beginning of next week. So thank you for tuning in. Have a terrific Thursday, Central Georgia. We'll be back once again at 10:30 tomorrow morning for a little bit of a longer extended forecast and a look at what we're up to.